The African American migration was the movement of 6 million people. This migration was from South America to North America. General areas that African Americans moved into were around Alabama, Louisiana, and Mississippi. The Great Migration had two parts to it. The first part, from 1910 to 1930, moved 1.6 million people, and the second part, from 1940 to 1970, moved 5 million people. A push factor. African Americans moved due to racism and employment. Most jobs that African Americans could have were in the northern side of America. The Southerners were discriminating the African Americans, and that was one of the reasons why they migrated. A pull factor. The blacks were recruited for industrial jobs, such as positionings with expansions of the Peninsula Railroad. The Great Migration moved 6 million people. This migration was from 1910 to 1970. The first Great Migration, between 1910 and 1930, was numbering about 1.6 migrants who left mostly rural areas to migrate into northern and western industrial cities. And the second Great Migration, between 1940 and 1970, which moved 5 million people into cities. The African American migration was a regional migration. The Great Migration created the first large urban black community in the North. It was estimated that 400,000 African Americans left the South in 1916 through 1918 to take advantage of the labor shortage in the beginning of the First World War. In comparison to my main migration, I can compare this to the Jewish migration in 1933. In January 1933, there were 523,000 Jews in Germany, migrating into other parts of Europe.